enjoyed my elevator in the back while we were waiting. Welcome to my studio in London Fields, East London. As I think some of you know, I'm Andrew Salgado. I think as some of you know, my show was supposed to open on this past Friday, 15th of May, and obviously for various reasons it didn't. So I've been out of the studio for a while working on some other various projects. I also found it very hard to create alone, so I just kind of focused on other things that I've been trying to get around to. But I thought it would be fun to kind of get my feet back wet in the studio and welcome you guys. And I've never done anything like this, and this show I particularly, as I used to do, I kept this show pretty top secret. But you know what, everything's up in the air these days, so why not just spill the beans? And the show is now rescheduled to October 16th, and I imagine you will see some various incarnations of the paintings that you see here, or you'll probably see various changes as things happen, because this show is, as I mentioned, intended to be a spring show, intended to have a different vibe, and now that it's moving to the fall, I'm sure that will change how I work. So feel free to ask questions. We'll probably do no more than 15 minutes, and my friendly video assistant is going to kind of zoom in and out and weave throughout some of the paintings while we go. So yeah, the show was supposed to be called In the Springtime We Go Dancing. The works you're seeing right now are all, well, let's put it this way, none of them are finished. Some are more finished than others. I think you might be able to tell which are more or less done. The vibe, you know, I've been reading a lot, and so my inspiration for this show had to do with a lot of my literary inspirations. And I'm kind of picking up on things that had happened in earlier shows that I liked, reinventing them, revisiting them, and putting them back out there in a different way. You'll see that my colors are, so I'm just gonna move this. You'll see that my colors are quite rich, quite saturated, but also pretty dark, which was a conscious decision. Because I think a lot of people, because I use that bright lemon acidic yellow so much, and I think a lot of people have associated that color with my work, there's a conscious decision to avoid it, just to give myself and my viewers some challenges. And so you'll see a lot of various scale works, larger scale, smaller scale. I hope you enjoy what you're looking at. There's a lot of throwbacks to, like, you know, the history of painting, I'm sort of plucking from various periods of art. You'll see like classical and neo. Oh, you gotta stay over here for the connection. Okay. You'll see like references to the modernists who I love, like Gauguin and Matisse. My assistant's gonna try to walk into this part of the room, but I'm not sure if the connection is strong enough to maintain that. Does it work?
We're good so far, yeah.
There's a large piece behind you, which, should we show it or not?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll give you a sneak peek of this. This is a play on Degas, The Young Spartans, which is a piece that I've wanted to do for probably a decade. I did a version of it when I graduated from my master's program, which was in 2008. So you'll see a lot of references to the history of art, past, present, and future. And I have a long way to go with this piece, but more than anything, I'm just trying to have fun with the works and keep things fresh.
Question, how do you decide the scale of your pieces? Repeat it so that people can...
How do I decide the scale of my pieces? Typically, I like to work either very large or very small. I find that this middle ground for me is problematic. I would call this like a middle ground, because I think it's really easy to be loud and sensational when you're on a big scale, obviously. And I think that for those very same reasons but opposite, it's really nice to find importance on a small scale. So I do struggle actually with the medium scale, just trying to maybe legitimize it in my own head. But I think, you know what, it's like my colors, it's just intuitive, and I try not to overthink things. Sometimes I'll start a painting and, you know, I'll redo it as a smaller or larger piece, but I try just to be quite intuitive. Any other questions? Thanks for coming. Hope everybody's washing their hands.
Can we see more details? Sure.
Yeah. So what you'll notice with this show is there's a lot of unforgiving collage elements. These are elements that I had done previously in previous bodies of work and paintings, and then kind of shied away from for various reasons. And then it was December when we went to the Untitled Art Fair in Miami that I realized that what a lot of people were drawn to in my work were the things that I was scared that they wouldn't like, namely the texture, the collaged bits. And I think for me, that's something that I've always found to be quite fun, and like these embellishments, because I think that the studio becomes a bit of a think tank at times, and everything's fair game. If my helper helps me come over here. There's this recurring element of these orbs, if you want to call them, for instance, oranges or whatever you want to call them. And a lot of those are like, you'll see a difference of mixed media. You'll see like little wood bits and paper, text bits. And I just like playing. And I also like the idea that a painting is meant to be seen in person, not on a computer
There's
screen.
lots of questions. So.
Okay, not in a book. So if you come to the show, I like that you're rewarded with a various play of textures.
Are they oil on canvas? Explain.
They're all oil on linen with oil pastel, as well as I said, the various like textural applications. You can see in this one, there's a lot of paper collage that comes on them.
Do you work from photo? That's another question.
I work from photo always. I work from photographs that I've taken myself, or that I've found off the internet, or that I have in like my vast resources of, books or whatever. So again, everything's fair game. The gentleman lying in this painting is a friend. The woman is taken from a painting that's in the Tate, Britain. I think she's called the Reading Woman or the Sleeping Woman. And there's bits from my books that are on the side, and I just like to play with whatever's available to me.
How do you decide on the randomness of your textures and collage?
Just through play. I never think that any mark is final. So you'll see, if you want to sneak into this one again, you'll see like this painting at one point was all pink. So you'll see the whispers of what's happening behind it. But what I like is that because no color is final, no mark is accidental, because it all builds up. And the more I realized a long time ago that what I liked about my work was what some people might call it, that it's overworked texture. So I don't like how overworked has become a pejorative term. Like, it's because it's overworked to me is what actually is maybe benefits it. And you get that, the shadow and the forgive the expression, but the palimpsest of colors beneath other colors that build up, such as here, which I find really interesting.
From Lewis Swain, he said, can you explain the specific, the massive vases or multiple cats with long tails?
That's a really good question, actually, thank you. My way to answer space, if you look back through the sort of trajectory of my work, my way to answer compositional space has often been to add 90-degree angles or rectangular shapes, which what?
Not in this one.
Which, not in this one, but you'll see it in that one. You'll see corners in that one. It's happened less in this show, but that was a way to handle compositional space, which then at one point I kind of realized these angles look like paintings within paintings, so I played that up. And then I realized that with my previous bodies of work, all my edges were straight and all my angles were 90 degrees. So I wanted to add curled shapes, and that's where the curls of the vases come in, the curls of the smoke, the curls of the cat's tails that become kind of these sort of jokey, curly Q shapes, just to break the eye from having all straight edges and straight angles. So that's a good question.
When do you decide to change the media in a piece?
When do I what?
Decide to change the media in a piece?
Well, my media is always this. My media is always oil. You can see my colors here. I'm quite messy. I have a lot of bad habits in the studio. But I work with spray sometimes. I work with oil pastel because I like the immediacy of oil pastel. Those were invented by Sennelier for Picasso because he wanted like that immediate touch. So I like that as well because I get quite impatient.
From Glass by Butler, do you create as you go, or have you prepared everything on your mind from the start?
No, everything is, well, there's a loose idea that changes as I go, because I think it's really important to listen to the demands of your painting. I can actually post it later, but this piece here originally had two figures talking, if you want to turn and look, and is now a monkey in vases, but the original piece was another figure right here. This piece was, again, totally different. So I think it's really important to react to the desires of your painting.
To Ruth Carlin, she wants to know the size of the big piece.
The big piece is
360/203.
Is 360. That's centimeters by 203. So if you so that's like 80 inches tall by maybe 160, just under 160, 120 inches maybe. I'll take a few more questions and then, not that I'm not enjoying this, but just to keep it.
Are the paintings sketched in the frame after it is fully dried? Oh, sorry, stretched.
Oh, no,
Okay.
I used to work that way, but now I stretch ahead of time. So I have my size and then I go to work.
From Cheryl, if you use collage, how do you secure the final result?
You're supposed to use archival glue. So I'll just leave it at that. That's what you're supposed to use.
From Masha, she says, why linen and not canvas? What's the difference for you?
Linen just has so we talk about like toothiness and that kind of thing. Linen just has a different toothiness to it. I use pre-primed linen, but I paint on the reverse of pre-primed linen. So you can see that's linen with its uniform prime. And then the reverse is this. So I actually paint on the back, but then I use clear gesso because rabbit skin glue is gross to seal that. So it's just a difference of how your paint applies to the surface and what you prefer. So just test things out.
From Kyle Filter, how long are your painting sessions typically?
I usually come in like a real job. I'll come in, I work typically Tuesday through Saturday. I like working the weekends. And about 8 hours. I think when we're self-employed or when we're doing it seriously, I think you can't cut corners. So it's really important to come in and put in the time. So I spend a lot of time here. Sometimes I don't know where the hours all go.
Did you enjoy the book Saramago Blindness, and do the books make it into your paintings?
Did I what? Slow down? Sorry.
Did you enjoy Saramago Blindness?
Oh, did I enjoy Blindness by Saramago?
And do books make it into your paintings?
Yeah, I enjoyed The Devil by Saramago a lot better. Yes, I don't know if you've tuned in late, but I'm a big reader, and this show is quite heavily based on a lot of my reading, because I realized that when I was reading, I was just playing a lot with like environments and fantasies, so I just have been visiting that quite a bit.
Do you find oil easier to work with than acrylic?
No, I don't think it's easier, but I think the possibilities are much greater.
How do you fix the collage with oil paint onto the canvas?
So we just answered that, but ideally you're supposed to use archival glue.
An observant fan. The yellow couch is still here.
The yellow couch is still here. It's super comfy. If anybody wants to take it, I'll sell it to you. It's very loud. Look, I got a grand odalisque moment here, right? Check it out.
A couple more little quick questions before we go. How do you decide when a painting is done? Stay there if you want.
I think I think it's like a very slow process, and you can sense when you're nearing the end, right? So you start slowing down toward the end, but I also think it's important to step away for a few days or a few weeks and come back, revisit pieces, because I think a lot of times we know when a painting's done, and I think sometimes we just get sick and tired of them, but it's important to really resolve a piece to the extent that it deserves.
Okay, two more questions. Any advice from artists wanting to explore texture and color?
Yeah, just don't be shy, and remember that it takes a lot. I think it takes a lot to destroy a painting. So don't be shy to keep revisiting and keep applying, because if you look at the texture of my paintings, they're all quite heavy, and I think if you're not concerned about having a really smooth or really thin texture, then you can just go crazy.
From Adam Robinson Art, would you ever consider framing your work behind glass?
We do. We frame all paper works behind glass.
Such
the
as this?
Oil on canvas works, we put in box frames. So, yeah, I think, how long have we been on for?
Yeah, just about time. I was looking for one. The cat lady is my favorite. Where are you? Why are you so handsome? Okay, here's the lot. Do you concentrate on one painting at a time during a session, or is it?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I'm really fortunate to have the benefit of space, and usually I like to have the benefit of time. Namely, like I like to keep at least 6 months before I mount a show. I like to have 6 months of work time. So the analogy I always use is that instead of finishing paintings concurrently, or consecutively rather, such as like stacking bricks one on top of the other, I like to finish paintings concurrently so that like a bathtub all works rise at the same time. And the reason I do that is so no one piece feels sorely under finished than the next. You know, if you start one painting and then do 6 months of work, the first painting is going to feel different than the last painting. But this way, they all share that similar, you know, aesthetic ethos. So again, I just want to thank everybody for coming. I hope you've enjoyed the online preview of my show. Once again, you'll probably see some of these in October, maybe you won't. If anybody wants to inquire about works, feel free to toss me a DM or email my gallery, Beers London. And thanks for coming, and stay safe, and I appreciate your time.